Good afternoon and welcome to the December 17th Housing Authority meeting held in the afternoon, being called to order at 3:05 p.m. May we please have roll call?
Yes, Housing Authority members Ajinian, Asadarian,
Here.
Brotman,
Here.
Barpetian,
Here.
Najarian,
Here.
Parazian, Chair Kasakian.
Here.
Here. Thank you. And before we proceed with your report, well, let's have your report, and then I'd like to ask the city attorney to make a few announcements for housekeeping, because I'm sure folks viewing from home can see that we have two council members calling in remotely.
The agenda for the December 17, 2024 regular meeting of the Glendale Housing Authority was posted on December 11, 2024 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So with respect to Housing Authority members Asatrian and Najarian, they are participating remotely. They will have to state on the record that they are have an illness that prevents them from joining us in chambers, as well as state whether or not there are any adults in the room with them that are 18 years or older, and if so, the general nature of the relationship. After those statements, the council, the Housing Authority will need to vote to allow their participation remotely.
Okay, with that, I'll turn it over to the mayor first to state her reason for calling in remotely, and also that Mayor Asatrian, if you can let us know that you are there participating with no one else in the room, or whoever else is in the room, state who they are.
Hi, everyone. I've come down with the flu. Didn't want to make anyone else sick. I'm here with Buddy, who is not 18 years and older and is not human.
All right, thank you. And Councilmember Najarian?
Thank you. I'm at my home. I'm in day 2 of an episode of acute nasopharyngitis, and I am alone.
Thank you. We
It's the
wish you,
commonly known as cold.
well, we wish you both good health and speedy recovery. We will miss you in the chambers today, and that satisfies the requirements under Assembly Bill 2449.
We need a
Correct.
vote from the Housing Authority to allow the
All right.
participation.
Who would like to make the motion to allow our colleagues to remotely participate?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All right, motion was made and seconded. Let's have the roll call, please.
Authority members Ajinian, Asadarian,
Am I supposed to vote for myself?
Okay. Go ahead. Yes, you may vote.
You may vote.
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Barpetian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Councilmember
Yes.
Najarian? Okay. Najarian voted yes?
Parazian,
Yes.
Chair Kasakian.
Yes. And with that, let us proceed to the agenda of the Housing Authority. Let's have the approval of minutes for the December 3rd, 2024. I have a motion for approving those. Would like to make the motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Authority Member Garpetian, seconded by Parazian. May we have roll call, please?
Yes. Housing Authority members Ajinian, Asadarian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Barpetian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Parazian,
Yes. Yes?
Yes.
Thank you.
Chair Kasakian.
Yes, thank you. All right, minutes are approved, and their next item on the agenda is oral communications. Do we have any cards or any callers?
We have a caller.
We do have a caller
Yes.
for oral communications, so I'll ask you to read oral communications into the record.
Yes. Oral communications, discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. Members of the Housing Authority may question or respond to the speaker, but there will be no debate or decision. The matter may be referred to staff through the Executive Director for investigation and report. We have one caller. Beth Brooks is on air. Beth, you're on air. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. Thank you. This is a generic comment or series of questions, and it really refers to what the goal is of the housing division in Glendale and what your goal is for affordable housing in this city. As far as I can tell, there aren't any and haven't been any programs for 23 years that allow people to stay in their homes. So the focus appears to be on new housing, building new housing, which often takes years and doesn't help people stay in their homes. So to me, the same as if I went to the emergency room, because people not affording their rent is an emergency, and I was told at the desk that I'm sorry, I can't see you now, but in 2 years I might be able to see you, but there's a lottery that you have to, enter, and maybe 1 to 10% of the people who enter that lottery will get their broken leg fixed. So I don't know what is happening in the city. I don't know. We don't actually need new housing. We don't. We don't need new buildings. I know developers need to make money, and I know it brings in revenue to the city because people spend money then in the city. And I know that there are special interests, of the city council who are aligned with real estate developers. But there are two things going on here. People need to pay their rent. They can't wait for maybe 16 spots in affordable housing that gets built, because that's the other kind of, not scam, but that's the other situation that people don't understand about the affordable housing that's being built. Only a small percentage goes to people who are really, really suffering. You can have between 30% to 80% AMI and get an apartment. As far as statistics were concerned in the last census, I saw that there are 25,000 people in Glendale living in poverty. So what are you doing building new housing when these people are choosing between buying food, which has doubled in the supermarket, and paying their rent? I think that the housing division and the city council needs to tell the city and tell residents who are struggling what your priorities are, because they are absolutely not keeping people in their homes. Absolutely not happening. And I would like to know personally, as a struggling resident, why? Why don't you want to help people? That's really my question. Building new housing is not helping people stay in their apartments. Why don't you want people? I don't have an answer. And I think I don't need to be part of the city council because it would seem to be obvious to anybody. People are struggling and they're not getting help. And that's why people like me might come in front of you and sound bitter and angry, because I thought you were supposed to serve the community. That's your job. It's not my job to be a nice person. It's your job to help us. And why aren't you? That's really that's all I have to say. I don't understand the decision-making process, and I think you've failed the most vulnerable populations in this city, which tend to be the poor, the elderly, immigrants, the disabled. And I truly do not understand why. Why isn't there money for us? Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for calling in and sharing your views and opinions. Hopefully today's meeting will help answer some of the questions you may have, and I encourage you to contact staff directly to get a perhaps more in-depth understanding of what the areas are that the Housing Authority works with to address the needs in the community. And I'm sure staff would be more than happy to give Ms. Brooks a more thorough explanation of what the city can and cannot do. With that, if we have no other callers, we have one more.
We have another caller.
All right.
Fernando Roldan, you're on air. You have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Madam Mayor, members of the council, and of course, board members of the Housing Authority, and Director Zovak, if you're there also. My main concern, is also, along with what the caller said, is not just affordable housing, but also more accessible housing. I mean, I understand the need of building more homes, but of course, we have to remember that budget is tight, and also we do need more accessible housing. And this is one of the reasons why I'm hoping that by next year, 2025, you really consider creating a disability advisory group to make sure that apartments and housing here in Glendale are wheelchair accessible, not just for the entrance, but also for the bathrooms, the space, because unfortunately, we're going to get more people with disabilities. We have a lot more seniors here. And I asked my city and my council and my mayor, please think about creating a disability advisory group, especially in the area of housing. I mean, that really needs to be a priority, and I ask that for the next upcoming year. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. Have a good day. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Rodan, for also calling in. If there are no other callers, then we will
Chair
close.
Kasakian, if
Go ahead.
I can address the caller.
Sure, go ahead.
I did want to note that I had a meeting with the organizations that had come to accept the proclamation for Disability Awareness Month about a month and a half ago, and requested that they work on putting together some kind of grander ideas around what the advisory committee could look at. I've also asked staff to schedule a follow-up meeting, and I'm hoping that that group, along with anybody else, can begin the work of serving as an advisory to the city council. I know that the staff is supposed to be putting together a report, and I'm hoping that could be done in the first month when we come back for the new year.
All right, thank you for that, Mayor Asatryan. All right, next item on the business agenda. I'd like to ask our clerk to read the item into the record.
Item 1, Community Development regarding public hearing and approval of Glendale Housing Authority proposed Section 8 Administrative Plan Policy Supplement effective January 1st, 2025. 1, resolution adopting the Glendale Housing Authority Section 8 Administrative Plan Policy Supplement effective January 1st, 2025.
All right, thank you. Mr. Galanian.
Yes, good afternoon, Chair Kasakian, members of Housing Authority. I'm just going to invite Edgar Akopian, our senior housing analyst, that's going to cover this report, which includes the comprehensive policy document for the Section 8 program. Mr. Akopian.
Thank you, Mr. Galandian. Good afternoon, Chair Kasakian, members of the Housing Authority. Today we're here to conduct a public hearing and request approval of a policy amendment to the Section 8 Administrative Plan as a result of HUD's requirement for the Glendale Housing Authority to implement small area fair market rents effective January 1, 2025. The administrative plan serves as the foundation of our Section 8 program policies and operations. While we typically align updates to this plan with the PHA annual plan, HUD's mandate requires that this SAFMR policy change take effect ahead of the upcoming annual plan. Small area fair market rents, or SAFMRs, mark a shift in how payment standards are determined. Instead of using the wider metropolitan fair market rents for the greater LA County area, SAFMRs calculate fair market rents at the zip code level. This approach acknowledges the variations in housing costs across different neighborhoods. HUD's objective is to provide our voucher participants greater access to areas with lower poverty rates, reducing concentration in high poverty areas. In accordance with HUD's requirement, payment standards have been established for each zip code in Glendale, which fall within HUD's available range of 90 to 110% of the SAFMRs. A hold harmless policy has also been implemented to prevent rent subsidy reductions should the implementation of the SAFMRs result in a reduction in payment standards for participants in current units. Here we can see a comparison between the new payment standards based on the new SAFMR model. That's the top matrix, it's the bigger one, compared to the previous FMR model, which is represented by the bottom matrix. As you can see, there are variations from zip code to zip code. Now, in preparation for this update, we engaged the Resident Advisory Board and provided the proposed changes for public review and comment. The Resident Advisory Board did not have any critical feedback regarding the new policy. We're confident that this policy update aligns with HUD's goals and strengthens our program. Therefore, we respectfully recommend that the Housing Authority adopt a resolution approving the Glendale Housing Authority Administrative Plan Policy Supplement effective January 1, 2025. This concludes my report. I'm available for any questions. Thank you.
Who would like to ask questions first?
I can ask.
All right, Councilmember Garpetian.
Thank you. How many vouchers do we have in Glendale as far as the Section 8? Is it? Can we ask that questions here today, or is it kind of related? All related, right? How many vouchers do we have? How many? I remember it was like 3,300, 500 or so. So is it still the same, or it was increased?
Authority Member Garpetian, so we have our allocation is 1,592 for Glendale HCV vouchers.
Right.
In addition to that, we administer portable vouchers from other cities, and that number stands at 967. In addition to that, we have 203 EHV vouchers, which are for homeless people. We also have veterans vouchers. We have 7 currently in units. We have 14 mainstream vouchers. And we have 45 fair share vouchers, which are bonus bonuses bonus vouchers that HUD awarded us, which we leased up. One additional thing about our current vouchers, even though our allocation is 1,592, we only have 1,423 leased up, and that's because of our budget. We recently, today, received notice from HUD that we're in shortfall, which means that our budget is only covering this many vouchers. So we're, as a matter of fact, we're a little over at this point. So that's where we stand currently.
How much is our budget for that 1,423 vouchers?
Something around 48 million.
48 million?
Correct.
Can you also explain where that funds come from? Like when you say that's our budget, give a holistic picture of what approximate 48 million means?
Chair Kasakian, the budget is federally funded. So it comes from the federal government. It's administered by HUD. The same thing goes with the port vouchers, but the portable vouchers are paid for the initial housing authorities where clients come from, but they're still federally funded.
So on this payment standards or the prices for 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms, where do we get these numbers?
They're based on the small area fair market rents. These are numbers established by the government. So they sort of, through the census, through data gathering, they determine how much the fair market rents are in those particular areas. And then they give us some flexibility to set our payment standards, which is between 90 and 110%. And then what we do is we look at we sort of do a balancing act. We say, okay, based on our budget, what can we set the payment standards at so that we provide quality housing to our participants, at the same time help as many people off the waiting list as possible.
Right, because I'm looking at this list, and one bedrooms in 91204 area, which is kind of mid to South Glendale, versus, I don't know, 91208 or 91207 area, it's like $83. There's not much difference between a one bedroom, for example, on Broadway, and a one bedroom in North Glendale, for example, I don't know, on Glenwood. That's I thought it would be a lot big difference between the two, but
The reason
not-
that,
yeah. Mhm.
sorry.
Go ahead.
The reason you're seeing that is because we have flexibility to set the payment standards. And the reason that it's not higher in the higher income areas is because of our budget. So this is the first year that we're implementing the SAFMRs. So we're sort of constricted by our budget.
So
We're in
these are not the rents in those areas. These are the budgets that we have for these areas.
Correct. That's the payment standards that at this point, we've determined that's as much as we can afford at this point.
I understand.
Now, in the future years, we can see how HUD funds us, and accordingly, we can adjust and hopefully set higher rates for those areas to have folks move into those areas, more folks move into those areas.
One last question. You said we had 1,592 vouchers. Now we can serve only 1,423. What happens to the rest of them, that 160 or 70 people? Did they have it and they lose those vouchers, or what happens to them?
Councilmember Garapetian, no one's being terminated from the program. So even though our voucher allocation is 1,592, we can only have 1,439 on the program at this point. We still own the allocations. So say if our budget were to increase in the future, then we can serve more of those people. But at this moment in time, HUD has told us to stop pulling people from the waiting list and issuing vouchers. So at this moment, that's all we can afford with our budget.
Right. And that's one of the answers to the lady who called and I was asking about people are not being able to pay their rent. This is one of the reasons, because we have the vouchers, but we cannot issue them because of the shortfall of the budget.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Hopefully, Ms. Brooks is watching or continuing to watch the meeting, and it helps provide her some answers. Now, just to be clear, when you say no one is being terminated from the program for no reasons that are arbitrary, there are people who do get terminated from the Section 8 program if they are found in violation of any of the rules or guidelines to participate in it, correct?
That's correct, Chair Kasakian.
Okay, because I want to make sure that that is clear, because everything, especially when it comes to housing and the environment we find ourselves in, everything is going to be reviewed under a magnifying glass by the public. So we want to be clear that people understand why we're not adding additional individuals to this list. I think the numbers that you provided are also helpful, and that people who are investigated, found in violation, are having their participation terminated. All right, before I turn to my colleagues who are in chambers, let me ask from our colleagues who are remotely participating, would they like to ask questions of staff?
I'm okay.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have any questions.
All right, thank you. Then I'll yield to Authority Member, Council Member Brotman.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to drill a little bit more into this budget question because it's interesting and it's important. $48 million that supports 1,423 vouchers, right? Or does that money also support these other vouchers, the veterans, the mainstream, the fair share, or?
That's for all of them. Authority Member Brotman, that's for everyone.
So what
That's
is
the
the
entire
total
budget.
number? If I wanted to divide by, if I wanted to divide 48 million by the number of vouchers that we're currently have leased out to get a sense of, for each voucher, what's the average cost for us to have somebody in housing under a voucher? What would that number be that I divide by?
Authority Member Brotman, we don't have that number for you today. We would have to do that calculation and get back to you.
Well, roughly. I mean, if I take, and it's probably going to be a little distorted. If I take 48 million, our budget, and I divide by 1423, the number that we have leased out of our standard vouchers, I get about $33.7 thousand per voucher. Now, the problem, right? Am I okay so far?
No, the 1423 is not all the allocation. 1423 is Glendale's allocation, but remember, we also have 967 ports. We also have EHV vouchers, the VASH, the mainstream, and the fair share vouchers as well.
So if I add them all up, I got 2,828. That's what I got just adding them up. So if I, and sorry I'm going through this, but it's kind of interesting and important here. So if I divide 48 million by 2,828, which is the total number of all the numbers you listed, I'm getting, okay, about 17,000 per voucher per year on average. Okay, and so, I mean, going back to the question of, why couldn't we, as, a theoretical exercise, why couldn't we say we want to double the number of vouchers and we'll fund the difference out of some other source of funds, our general fund? I mean, we're talking very large numbers here, right? 48 million, that's not something we could support. We don't have those kinds of resources. So I think it's interesting because our voucher program is like, if you get the voucher, you're doing pretty well. I mean, relatively speaking, you're getting a good amount, but we can only provide that to a small number of small percentage of the population, as opposed to a program that would be more broad-based. Okay, and we did talk about, and I think it's coming back to us at some point, reconsidering this kind of, for lack of a better term, universal basic income. We had this $300 a month subsidy program that we terminated. And maybe to answer, Ms. Brooks' question, that's one of the things that we could theoretically do. And it's a longer conversation we won't have now, and I might actually suggest that she, maybe I'll speak to her, but, like we can do subsidies, but, we only have so much money to go around, and it's very expensive. We can, and we can build new housing, and the idea that we don't need new housing, I think, is not correct. I think we do need new housing, but it's true that that's really a long-term solution. So as far as short-term solutions go, we have subsidies. We have rent stabilization, which we have under state law. We know there's a rent stabilization program. And we have our eviction protections, which, I think could be stronger. They exclude people in buildings of less than 4 units. Nevertheless, we do have some eviction protections. So we do have, and I'm speaking to her somewhat, we do have a number of things in our toolbox. It's not enough. It will never be enough because we don't have those kinds of resources as a city.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay.
I have a comment.
Yes. Authority member Brazian.
I believe after the implementation of the new payment standard by zip code for tenants with the Section 8 voucher, it'll be easy to find rental housing, because I believe before, I'm talking about myself, it was not easy to find the rental housing you wanted, let's say, in any zip code area. But now, since it is by zip code, you can just easily find the thing by your income level. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Well, and your staff research and findings make you certain that these adjustments will hopefully not discourage landlords from participating in the Section 8 program, right? Because we're trying to make the monies available to them somewhat commensurate with what market demands are.
Chair Kasakian, that's correct. We believe that the current rates is something that tenants can afford. They can afford to live in quality housing. As a matter of fact, not only are the payment standards different from zip code to zip code, but if you look, they increased for a small exception. They all increased through, even if it's by a little bit. So we think that our current participants should be fine, and our landlords can rent to them at reasonable prices.
All right. Well, certainly our city and the region we're in is unique in the country. I mean, I recall a number of years ago when searching for a home and learning about what the home buying process was, what was considered a jumbo loan federally, did not even begin to scratch the surface of what you could find here in Los Angeles, because the housing market specifically in Los Angeles, and additionally, and along with it, the rental market is so out of step with what the rest of the state and the country is, excluding places like the Bay Area, Silicon Valley, of course, and some of other outlying areas. On this item then, if there are no other questions, would anyone like to make the motion? Oh, we do have one caller.
One caller, yes.
Let's hear from our caller before we take authority action.
The caller is Beth Brooks. Beth, you're on air. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I really appreciate Mr. Brotman's comments, and because I think he brings up the point that I'm really making. And regarding HUD, this HUD program that you're talking about has had a waiting list that's been closed for 23 years. There are still people on the waiting list. So, as I mentioned, the new housing is a long-term solution, and that's not helping people in the short term. I don't see why HUD's closure of a waiting list should be the boogeyman that is cited every time we say we can't help people because HUD told us to close the waiting list. We can replicate that on a city level, and I do believe that the city has the money. I just believe that their priorities are not, as I would say, to help the lowest rungs of the ladder. That's what I would say. I know that a budget has to allocate money to a lot of different things, but one would think that they should apply a problem-solving concept of triage in the same way that that medical centers do, and you help the worst victims first. So I do think that there is money. I mean, I'm giving a presentation later at the City Council where I talk about this new project for 2025 that has $20 million to build new housing. When you could take $20 million into 5,000 people, let's say $500, right, or $600. It's not. You don't have to subsidize full rents for people. That's all I'm saying is take this HUD program that is to new people now, that also helps people with a portable voucher come from outside of Glendale. So it's not even helping Glendale residents. It's allowing people coming from, let's say, the San Fernando Valley to come in and get a Glendale apartment. It doesn't help people who are really struggling. You can replicate that program, whether it's $30 million that you have for the new housing. It's a tiny fraction of struggling renters, to be quite honest. And I do think I think it just requires reprioritization. And I think just exactly what Mr. Brotman said, and I just loved his comments, that to look at something where we just give people less, but give them some breathing room so that they're not choosing between, wow, how do I pay my rent now? And my electric bill that, mine was $600 this summer. I mean, it was just something out of control. Because most apartments in this city are actually very old with old appliances. Mine is the 60s. My air conditioner's from the 60s. My appliances are electric from the 60s. So that's all I'm saying, and I want to thank Mr. Brotman.
Thank you, Beth. Your time is up.
Thank you to the caller, and once again for sharing her opinions. And I welcome a conversation with her. I know that she said she believes we have the money. It's just a matter of priorities. I would respectfully challenge that view because we sit here every year and try to figure out how to pay for all of the services that we provide to the city, to our residents, and it's a very, very challenging exercise, not as simple as simply just saying that we have the money and we choose not to prioritize it. And as was stated, we are going to, I think, have a follow-up discussion to what the program, the very limited program that we had that was only able to help a minuscule fraction of our residents' need, but we will revisit that to see what council direction is. With that, there is no other callers or cards, so we'll entertain a motion. Who would like to make a motion for the resolution before us?
I'll move for the resolution, do I need to
A1?
spell it out? 6A1, yes.
Who would like to second it?
Second.
All right, so resolution was, the motion was made by Member Brotman and seconded by Member Parazian. May we have roll call, please?
Yes, Authority members Ajinian, Asatrian,
Yes?
Brotman,
Yes.
Garpetian,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
Parazian,
Yes.
Chair Kasakian.
Yes, thank you. Next is authority member and staff comments. Are there any comments that any members would like to make? Seeing none, we will move to adjournment. May I have a motion to adjourn the Housing Authority?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. We stand adjourned.